yes. So I'm driving in, I'm thinking about 83 people being arrested and just like this anger and just the sadness. And I drive in to, to the drive up here, and it's beautiful. And all of a sudden, this red-shouldered hawk just flies in front of me and stops in the middle of the road. And I just stopped my car, and I was like, whoa. I was like, thank you. I so needed that. Thank you. And all of a sudden, it picks up a snake. Choo! Just grabs it. And then looks at it, and then flies off. And there was a story from the Lakota about the black snake, and the black snake is the pipeline. Yes. And so this like red-shouldered hawk takes the black snake and like flies it away and destroys it. I'm in the right place tonight. And maybe I'll just start at the beginning. It started with some friends. Audrey came over to my house and she said, "We have to go, Roberta. We have to go." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she said, "We have to go to Standing Rock." And she says, "They're putting, dogs on people." And
somewhere else! Yes! Guys, stop this! Why are we standing in line? We are not leaving! We are not leaving! We are not leaving! We are not leaving!
Yeah, it just makes me in the face right now.
Americans to their ancestral lands, sacred sites, waters.
I got maced twice. I got bit by a dog. I was the front line because water is life. Like I said, without water, we wouldn't be here. These plants wouldn't be here. There'd be no oxygen. We all die without it. I wish they'd open their eyes and have a heart.
I saw what happened, and I kind of knew, I guess we have to go. And so they went first, and one of the beautiful things is that they wanted to go right away. She was just like, let's go now, we need to go now. And they called me up and I said, well, hold on, let's slow down. I think a lot of people want to go. We can't all go, that's going to use up a lot of gas, and that's what we're fighting here. But we can actually, why don't we make you the ambassadors of this trip? And so we had a gathering, everyone brought whatever they needed to bring. The children of the Outside Now School picked elderberries and created elderberry syrup to send there. And it just ended up being so much more powerful and beautiful coming as ambassadors. And then when they left, my daughter looked at me and she says, "We have to go." And I was like, "Oh, I thought they're doing it for us, right?" And then I had told her the story of the eagle and the condor, and the idea there is that the condor represents the heart, and the eagle sort of the abstract mind and the logical side of us. And when they join, then the world will be in balance again. And the condor is also the native tribes of South and Central America and the North, the sort of northern continents. So I told her the story a while back, and then she said, well, she's a clever girl, she's 12. She said, "Papa," she said, "you remember that story you told me about the eagle and the condor?" And I said, "Yeah." And then she said, "Well, what if we're part of the condor and the eagle's going to be sitting there waiting for us to show up?" And I was like, ah. So we ended up making plans and starting to go. And it was also very fitting because the whole, I don't know how familiar you guys are with this, but I'm assuming this room is self-selective and sort of knows what's going on there. But one of the cool stories we uncovered while being there was that the teens had sort of started this. They had come to their parents and they knew deep in their heart that this was their future. And if that river, gets polluted, they would have, no children. And so they said, "We want to do something." And the elders said, "No, it's dangerous. We don't necessarily want to, we'll work it out in different ways." And the children said, "No." And so they actually went, a group of teens went out to the camps and stood in front of where they were building. And, if your teen goes somewhere dangerous, you kind of end up going, all right, I need to go too. And so the grandmothers came, and then the mothers came, and people would bring wood and fire. And soon this camp of, 5 to 10 teens, depending on which day, became thousands of people. And it was really really touching, and I wanted to see, I wanted my daughter to see that. Just the power that, that a young person can have. Okay, so we went, and it was a difficult, discussion. But I spoke with a lot of friends that had gone, and what they said was actually the Red Warrior Camp is kind of where the action is. A lot of people self-select and go to the front lines, and the camp is absolutely beautiful. They said that there's grandmothers walking around making sure the 12-year-olds go to bed, before 10. There's a school that has been created that's teaching Native knowledge. There is no central organizing form. It's cells sort of being created, and there's different kitchens, and they, when this one runs out of something, the other one finds a way somehow to bring it some elk or some buffalo, and so it's just a beautiful self-organizing situation, and a lot of Amaya Lenka, and we sort of lost our lands when I was very young. Our village was flooded in a hydroelectric project, and then eventually that led to a war, and eventually that led to mass migration and loss of lands and culture and all that happens and all that can happen to these people there, and that has happened to all of us probably at some point. We just maybe don't know it. And so I wanted her to see kind of an intact village. I had a little glimpse of it when I was a child, and a lot of people I knew said, we're remembering how to be Indian again. We're remembering what it means to have council. We're remembering what it means to have, the women sort of decide what happens. And so that was a really just beautiful experience to see that. So one of the beautiful things to see was this unification. Kind of, when I think of the civil rights movements, one of the most powerful thing in it was that there was kind of a universal thread in the people doing it, sort of in a way that the backbone was the Southern Baptist Church and the spirituality that led to that. And so this is also happening here. It's not as uniform, but it's all the native cultures, and the land spirituality is there, and it's so different to see than sometimes our own angry activism at points. When anything, I asked my daughter, I said, what do you think is the one thing that you pulled out of that whole experience? And she looked at me and she said, that's a very hard question. She said, it was very spiritual, and I don't have that many words for that. And I said, let's reach in. What's in there? And she said, well, their need almost to bring song at any situation. I went to a fire after there had been the action where basically light armored vehicles with LRAD sound canyons came out, and people got maced, and guns were pointed at women and children. And one of the spirit riders, a young man on bareback on horse that are there to protect the women and children especially, he spoke about it at the fire after the action, and he said, he said, something changed in me that day. I've never had a gun pointed at me. And it wasn't anger. It was kind of a resolution that we're doing the right thing. And he said, he said, when I was out there and I knew the young men were looking at me, and I knew that the way I acted would make a big difference in how they reacted to it, and that could save their lives. He said, so I sang a song. So I'm on my horse and I'm singing a song and I'm smiling. And I just thought, gee, how powerful is that? So this bringing a song to everything. One night, there was a young girl that people thought had been lost. There was always fear of, like kidnappings or strange things, because that helps divide a camp, sort of some weird union busting type techniques. So there was that trust and lovingness, but at the edge you were always worried that there was an infiltrator or something had happened. And got woken up at about 3 in the morning once, and they were just calling out a young girl's name. They kept calling it out, and they said, "Everyone get up, everyone get up." So everyone got up and started looking for this young girl. And then they said, "Wait, everyone go to the camp." And so there was different camps, and so we went to the main fire, and we stayed up till about, 5 in the morning. And they said, "Wait, we have some news, we'll wait." It turned out to be, it was a miscommunication. And the girl had gone home with her mother, and the parents were separated, and so the other person hadn't gotten a good communication hand down. But the way it was dealt with was just unbelievable. Imagine like 2,000 people getting up and like looking for a little girl, and not being bitter about it or not freaking out, just kind of walking, holding hands, looking. And then at the end, one of the elders said, "Well, you guys are really riled up, and I can feel it. So we're going to sing some songs." So it's 5 a.m. and everyone's singing, and the Milky Way seems to be 4 times as big there because there's no mountains, it's the plains, and it was just beautiful to see that. Let's see. So one of the big things that I came back with was this concept that, or is a story that they want told, and a big part of it is, because everything is connected, right? Everybody's a relative. Everything starts with "Hi, hello, relative," and everyone treats you like a relative, and that's what I consider a village also, and that's what I'm trying to do in my neighborhoods is get that sense of everyone's related, like really deep down, and that a term they use a lot, mini Wiconi, so water is life, and that's over and over again, mini Wiconi, everything you do, mini Wiconi, and we forget that, when water comes out of the tap and it comes out no matter what you do, you forget, and so that was just deeply in there, and just that. It's a very. At one point, I was kind of joking. I said I was talking to Curly, who was the head of security, kind of big burly guy that could pick up like a wood stove with one finger. He kind of did once. And I was talking to him, and a helicopter went over the camp, over tribal lands. And so I kind of joked. I said, "Hey, he's flying over tribal airspace." I was like, "We can take him down with a flaming arrow, right?" And I thought he would laugh, but he kind of stopped. And he looked at me and he goes, we can't take that kind of negativity here. You're bringing the camp down. We must be in prayer all the time." And I was like, whoa. So, they really do take it seriously. Like your mind has to be clear, and you have to be in prayer no matter what you're doing. And it's so easy to be in anger when you have, when there's espionage, planes with super high range lenses and infrared cameras to count how many people are at the camp. So it's a really, it's a hard place to be in prayer. So I learned that you can be in prayer, and that we're not protesting, that we are protecting. And I was recently on a radio show, and the show host kept trying to say, "Oh, come on, you're protesting, right?" And I said, no, we're protecting. And then I kind of thought to myself, well, okay, so imagine someone's coming at your mother with the big pipe with poison in it, and they're trying to put it in her stomach. I was like, so when you stand in front of her, are you protesting or are you protecting her? Because that is what the river is like. It's their mother. Like, it's not an abstraction. It's what it is. So in order to get the story out, so I think sometimes we don't know where to help often. We go somewhere, or we hear about something, and it's kind of depressing, and you want to curl up in a ball. But we all carry gifts, some kind of gifts. I ended up in technology somehow. I think it was that need to connect back to another place, being kind of a refugee. And so I've got good technology, and one of the things they needed was a better. There was no internet connectivity at camp, and so here are people, being maced and dogs attacked on them, and then they have to get in their car, drive to the casino 10 miles, and upload a video. So it's actually kind of comical. At the end of the night, there's all these protectors in the lobby in the casino, uploading video. So And it gets really frustrating when you're just like, oh my God, we have to get this word out, and you have to do that. So I talked to some folks from the Indigenous Environmental Network and a great Guy Myron from Digital Smoke Signals and some of the tribal leaders, and I said, I think I can help. I could bring some equipment, and they said, yeah, go for it, And so I showed up, well, right before I went, I put a bunch of money on my credit card and then went off and tried to help out. And I did a presentation for a technical group earlier. It's the only thing I had time for to do. So yeah, I'll show you some slides here. So challenge was no broadband, cell data was spotty and actually jammed. I had a lot of my text messages get garbled, and there was random cell stations that would show up and disappear. If you have some software, you could see that. So it was pretty obvious that they were using surveillance techniques and disrupting communication. And yeah, we just had to get the word out. So my theme was, well, why don't I bring my gift of technology for good? And I know there's a lot of other people behind me that would also like to do something. And so I thought this is a good way to be an ambassador and then bring a bunch of people with me. And so I mentioned it to someone who I did some consulting for. And so he said, here, just pull up this GIS data and then do this, this, and that. And all of a sudden, I knew exactly where to put the radio relay points. And I had a whole topo map of where the line of sight issues were. And it was someone I wasn't expecting to be a helper, and they were. So it was kind of neat. Then, of course, things like Facebook and different technologies, of course, connect us, and we can put our messages out. So that's my daughter, and that the evening before there had been like 60-mile-an-hour winds and sustained winds, and most of the tents, a lot of them got popped up by now, but most of the tents were basically flattened that evening. And so I wanted to give the shout out to the teepee technology that stayed up doing that stuff. It's still pretty good stuff. So this is some of the maps I used to figure out. It kind of can tell you who owns the cell towers. Small story here. This is Radio Venceremos, which is a revolutionary radio in El Salvador. And my family was part of this. So it was really kind of fun when I started thinking about what I'm doing. I'm like, hey, what a cool connection to sort of revolution and how important communications are. So I did learn a lesson. If you're going to put $6,000 on a credit card, you should probably tell your wife, because the credit card company will probably call her to ask her if that was a legitimate purchase. Okay. All right. So I just want to show some of the beauty of the location. The stars were just unbelievable there. I mean, you just can't believe it when you get up and you're in the Milky Way. And I just thought, wow, what a deep connection to the ancestors in place. So some of the bad, right? The militarization, basically the fascism that is showing up. These things are way, and part of the reason is they lose these toys if they don't use them, like within a year. So there's some funds that are given to departments, and if they don't use them, they go away. And so, so it's just brutal to see them bring in all this stuff that wasn't not needed. This is Teresa Black Elk. She has her chanupa there, and she was praying, and then she was arrested that night. And it was shameful for these officers to do that to someone's grandmother. Any questions? Yeah.
Are you crowdfunding now?
Yes, yeah. So we started a thing called Tech Warrior Camp. There was a Red Warrior Camp, and then there's different camps there. And so we thought this would be like a virtual camp. And so anyone with tech skills or anyone that wants to help with equipment stuff. So it's a GoFundMe/Tech Warrior Camp. And I think Bob sent out the link. Thank you. Yeah. So the question was, is there anything that could be done from here? We have a Facebook group called Slohana Defending the Sacred, and so people go there and they coordinate. So when people say, hey, one of Bloom's friends said, hey, we're going by the area, anyone want to send anything or come with us? So that's a good place to kind of be for that synergy. You know, there's, of course, you know, crowdfunding things for like Warrior Camp, and the Legal Defense Fund is super important because it takes a lot of money to get people out of jail and to file the lawsuits to stop this. So those are two, and then Sacred Stone Camp, and a lot of the camps have their own crowdfunding. So yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you.
Roberto Monge, everyone. What an inspirational talk. Wow. Remember, we talked about mules this morning, so some people are doing all the work, I think. So we have another speaker.
Well, it's really good to have these technical support on the Geeks Without Bonds and Red Cloud Defense Center. And we've been able to fix up not only the center here, but also the need to have media communications. That's part of our main strategy here, and to be able to have the technology and the ability to web stream, to have internet and enough bandwidth here to push up video content. And what we want to do is with press, you know, get the narratives out there, especially counter narratives, because that's what we're fighting, the corporate media, and also to be able to set back up our community radio station with more power to transmit, especially with the tower that needs to go up, so we can get on the other side of Fort Yates. So communication is very important for winning this battle.
Awesome.
Protects the waters, they say. We can't drink. This is our sacred soil. Protect the waters, they say. We can't drink. Oh, this is our sacred soil. Yeah. Hey,